It seems like it's become a trend on YouTube to post videos about how to get ahead of 90% of people, how to be better than 90% of people, how to join the top 1%. And you know what? There's actually a lot of great content out there on this topic. But then there's also content that feels like someone just opened ChatGPT and asked for a generic list of things to do to be in the top 1%. That's when you hear advice like wake up at 4 a.m., meditate, eat oatmeal, and you get ahead of 90% of people. Now let me just say two things. First, plenty of people already wake up early, eat healthy, and hit the gym. And guess what? They're still pretty average. Doing those things doesn't automatically put you ahead of 99% of people. It just makes you normal. And second, if there were a clear-cut list of steps to be in the top 1%, everyone would be doing it. And if everyone does it, then no one stands out and the list becomes meaningless. So instead of giving you a generic checklist, I've put together a compilation of things I've done over the last 15 years. Things that worked for me. Now, this might not apply to everyone, but these are the habits and strategies that helped me get ahead of the majority, especially in business, investing, and more recently, health. So let's dive in. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and comment. I'll reply to every one of you guys. Let's start with logic. If you want to be ahead of 99% of people, you need two things. First, you need to do what most people aren't doing. And second, you need to stop doing what most people are doing. So why is this so hard and why do so few people succeed? Because your mind is programmed to follow the crowd. If your house catches fire and everyone starts running, what do? You run. If everyone is fleeing from a predator, what do? You flee. This is how your brain evolved to help you and everyone in your group survive attacks or other threats. And this is where things start to get tricky. A study published in the scientific journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that the human brain has barely changed in the past 160,000 years. In other words, not only are you unprepared to do what the majority isn't doing, but your brain actively resists going against the crowd. If everyone is buying stocks and you haven't bought any, what do? You buy. If everyone is wearing the same clothes and you're not, what do? You wear them. If everyone eats the same things, what do? You eat them. Why? Because you need to feel like you belong to a group, even if that group is doing exactly what 99% of people do. So based on this logic, if you want to be part of the 1% who stand out, you need three things. First, list what most people are doing. Second, list what most people aren't doing. And third, and then force your brain every day to go against the grain. You need to push yourself to resist the herd mentality and do things differently. It sounds simple, but try spending an entire day outside of autopilot. It's incredibly hard. Your brain constantly wants you to stay on autopilot because it conserves energy. Imagine being 100% conscious of every step you take, every bite you eat, every minute at work, and every moment with your family. It's practically impossible. That's why I've created a list of what most people do and what most people don't do, so you can use it as a guide if you want to join the 1%. Before we continue, one side note, I'm not going to cover everything people do or don't do in every area of life, or we would be here for hours. Instead, I'll focus on three key topics: money, health, and spirituality, or God, depending on your perspective. And here's what most people do. First, when it comes to money, get into debt to play the role of fake rich, only to end up truly poor. They entrust their family's financial future to the government through social security programs. They believe that all rich people are greedy, arrogant, corrupt, and that money is the root of all evil. Second, when it comes to health, use work stress as an excuse to binge on sweets, convince themselves to accept their bodies even when carrying dangerous levels of excess weight. And actually, they avoid exercising altogether, blaming society or their parents for their inactivity. Third, when it comes to spirituality, they reject God as outdated and his laws in-laws are irrelevant. They dishonor their parents, making every effort to cut them out of their lives. They avoid having children because they're too much work, too expensive, or require too much commitment. And now the opposite. What most people don't do. Well, when it comes to money, prioritize being rich over looking rich, seeking better ways to increase their income through side hustles or professional growth, pay for streaming, delivery, and countless subscriptions, but fail to invest in their financial freedom. And when it comes to health, actually stick to a diet or plan to achieve their goals. Nobody does that. Track their food intake to understand the calories in that little snack they thought was harmless. Spend an hour working out daily, but waste 3 hours on gossip about who cheated on whom online. Then claim they don't have time to focus on their health. When it comes to spirituality, put God first in their lives. Nobody does that anymore. Honor their parents, which means accepting, forgiving, and showing gratitude to them. Guide their children who will carry forward everything they're building today. Looking at this, you might think, that's it. If I want to be ahead of 99% of people, tomorrow I'll start waking up earlier, starting a diet, exercise, stop making excuses, invest my money, and do what most people aren't doing. And this is where we encounter something known as the tall poppy syndrome. The concept first appeared in the writings of Herodotus. He is the Greek historian later dubbed as the father of history. According to Herodotus, during his time in Greece, the emperor sent a messenger to seek advice from an Athenian general named Thrasybulus on the best way to maintain control over his empire. The messenger asked him the question, but instead of responding with words, Thrasybulus began walking through a field of wheat. Each time Thrasybulus came across a poppy or a taller stalk of wheat, he cut it down, threw it on the ground, and said nothing. When the messenger returned to the emperor, he recounted Thrasybulus' strange behavior, but the emperor understood. The message was that he should eliminate anyone who rose above the others. The emperor had to get rid of the best to ensure his power and supremacy were never questioned. This idea is known as the tall poppy syndrome, which suggests that the success of others makes our own limitations more visible. This syndrome creates two significant problems that you must be prepared to face if you want to surpass 99% of people. Even Apple, the largest company in the world today, has had problems. Around 2007, Steve Jobs had the brilliant idea of merging the iPod with a phone, thus creating the iPhone. And guess what? Many people thought it was a ridiculous idea and wouldn't work. Today, Apple's revenue from the iPhone alone is almost twice Petrobras' revenue. Many other products that faced skepticism at first also generate massive profits today. So, key lesson: you have many wins, but not everything you try will succeed. But when you combine being someone who diverges from the majority, doesn't follow the herd, the courage to be the tall poppy in Herodotus' story, great things begin to happen. And in part, that's what happened to me. This doesn't mean it applies to you, but over the past 15 years, I've identified some probability modifiers that helped me in some way to get to where I am today. When I say probability modifier, I mean things you can do today that will completely change the future of your life. Think of it like when a train hits a switch on the track and changes its course entirely. After a few kilometers, the train is in a vastly different location than it would have been had it stayed on its original path. That's how a probability modifier works. The first probability modifier is ask the right question. Most people ask, what do I want to do? But if you only do what you want, you probably won't get where you'd like to be. The right question isn't what do I want to do, but rather what do I want to achieve? With that answer in mind, you know now what you must do, and eventually you'll get to where you've always wanted to be. The second probability modifier is go after low-hanging fruit. Once, during a trip, I came across a plum tree. I picked one plum with one hand, pulled the branch down with the other, and grabbed another plum. Turned to the person beside me and asked, "What do you notice here?" And they said, Nothing. I replied, exactly. These are two identical plums, but the higher fruit is always harder to reach. So if I want to speed up my process of wealth accumulation, for instance, I shouldn't aim for the higher fruit before harvesting all the ones within easy reach. In real life, higher fruit means spending more money, time, effort, and exposing yourself to more risk than lower fruit. Sometimes, chasing the higher fruit in your business leads to a fall that breaks you, your company, your family, your dream. Everything could collapse. So always go after the low-hanging fruit before reaching for the higher ones. The third probability modifier is start to invest. If you save $300 a month, you reach your first million in 280 years. But if you invest $300 a month, you reach your first million sooner, in 30 years. That's a 250-year difference between saving and investing. And the only barrier between saving $300 a month and investing $300 a month is knowledge. And that's it. The strongest argument is the numbers. I don't need to say anything more about this third topic. Now to the fourth probability modifier, you need to arrive early. I know it sounds simple, but to get exactly where I am, wherever that may be, this habit helped me. Think about it. If you worked from 9 to 7, that's 10 hours of work per day. If you arrive every day at 8, you are adding 1 extra hour of work per day. 1 extra hour per day is 5 extra hours per week. In 2 weeks, that's 10 extra hours. Essentially, 1 extra workday. In a month, that's 2 extra workdays. In a year, that's 24 extra workdays. In 1 year, you've worked nearly 1 extra month simply by arriving an hour earlier each day. The fifth probability modifier is don't rely on external peace. Reaching the top is very hard. Staying at the top is much harder, and maintaining peace while there is even harder. My lesson for you is don't rely on peace from external sources. Being at the top will drastically increase the noise around you. Many will try to bring you down. Even if you're not mentally strong, many will try to bring you down. And if you're not mentally strong, you want to fall yourself. Understand that true peace doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. The sixth probability modifier is don't be the smartest in the room. If 5 people around you train every day, you feel bad about being out of shape. If 5 people around you eat poorly, you feel good about overeating. If 5 people around you invest every month, you feel bad about wasting money. If you surround yourself with below average people, you create the illusion that everything is fine. Surround yourself with people better than you, and you realize you can go much further. Don't be the smartest person in the room. You need people who push you to improve and demand more from you. The seventh probability modifier is embrace imbalance. These days, everyone says you need a perfectly balanced life. 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, 8 hours for yourself. But if you don't imbalance your life and make sacrifices for money today, you'll never experience the true sense of balance that financial freedom can provide. Those who live a balanced life today will have an unbalanced life tomorrow. And those who live an unbalanced life today will have a balanced life tomorrow. The choice is all yours. So that's it, cousins. I'll leave it here for now. Big hugs, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.